Hello, foolish mortals. Welcome to Enthusiastic Encouragement and Dubious Advice, the podcast for folks who would rather curl into the fetal position than lean in. I'm your host, Patricia Elsie Tuttle.
And I'm your ghostess with the mostess, Nicole Elsie Tuttle. We are recording this show on October 23rd, 2024.
And we recently finally got to see Wicked, the musical.
I finally got to see it. You saw it again.
Well, this was maybe my fifth or sixth time. I think this is the musical I have seen the second most number of times.
And what this means, because this clearly was not the original cast, is that now when I try listening to the original cast recording, the voices are all wrong.
Because this was not the cast you got to see.
Yeah, and I hadn't listened to the show before. I'd heard snippets from when you listen to your musicals Spotify station or whatever, but yep, now I have different voices in my head.
Rather than the regular voices in your head.
No, now they're telling me I'm going to be popular.
Ah. But it was fun. It's always so great to see like all the kids dressed up for the show.
Yeah, it was really cute.
Yeah. You could tell, like, some of them, it might have been, like, their first musical or something, so.
So to celebrate this, we also both decided to read the book.
Which, one of my exes, many years ago, bought me the book in, like, the year 2000 or something. I think the book was published in 1995. I never actually read it, and I just ended up, tossing it or selling it to a bookshop or something when we broke up. And I knew that the book was different from the musical.
And to be clear, this is not the original Frank L. Baum Wizard of Oz books. This is the Wicked books.
Wicked, A Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West by Gregory Maguire. And it's the first in a whole series.
It's like 4 books, and then I think there's like subsequently 3 more after that or something.
Well, and the next year he's publishing Elfie.
Oh, gosh.
So
more books in this series.
So what you're going to see, if you haven't read this book, or even if you have, you're still going to see it, is that they have re-released the book with a movie cover, right? The movie with Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo. And the movie's coming out November 22nd, I think. So you're going to see this and you're going to think, oh, this book is the book of the movie. And you would be incredibly wrong.
Oh my gosh, there are characters with the same name, and they occasionally have similar plot points.
But this is a very adult book, and it is also an absolute unhinged fever dream. It is very explicit. It is very adult. I know that some people that I've talked to, that I told them I'm reading the book, they're like, yeah, I read it when I was 14 and I really shouldn't have. So not that I'm going to tell you what your children can and cannot read, but just be warned, this is not a children's book.
If you think maybe your child is ready for this book, I would suggest you read the first, 20 pages?
Yeah, first 20, 25 pages.
That will tell you all you need to know about whether your child is ready for this book.
Yeah. I mean, it starts off right away with the transphobia and the homophobia, and it's a lot, and I cannot say I'm enjoying it, but I'm reading it because it's a bit like staring at a car crash. It's something.
I finished it, and so now you are giving me updates.
I'm giving you updates of where I am in the book.
And tonight you did not warn me while we were eating that you were going to give me an update at where you're at in the book. You just dropped it on me.
Yeah.
Saying, hey, they met the wizard, and I almost choked on my food.
Yeah, you spit out your food. You spit out your food at the table. And that one was on me because we know we should pay attention to when each other is eating or drinking so that we don't make a jokey joke or something. So that was on me.
Yeah, that one was. Luckily, the food was not on you.
Ba-dum-bum.
There you go.
Gross. So, that being said, remember we have a bookshop storefront that I will link in the show notes. It's also linked on our website, eedapod.com. If you buy books through there, one, you are supporting, or rather you're not supporting Amazon, and you're supporting us buying your books through Bookshop. Also our Patreon at patreon.com/EEDAPod. That is another way to show us some support financially because we're trying to do this show without ads. Also, if you want to give us a Halloween gift or an autumn gift, please rate this show, write a little review. Please share this show with someone you think will listen and enjoy it because I don't think it's getting in front of enough people.
It's definitely not.
Yeah, we have good stuff here. Come on.
We have good stuff. Yeah.
Well, this is our last episode before the election. And in our previous episode, we mentioned preparing for Election Day a little bit, but I think it might be helpful for us to be more explicit and deliberate. We are going to give details about what our plans are for Election Day to hopefully inspire you to do what you need to take care of yourself on that day. And we're also going to give some tips about communication in the other half of this show.
So if you're like me, and I'm going to presume I'm pulling Patricia into this as well, you could spend all of Election Day in a endless cycle of anxiety, just really worrying and chasing the latest updates. I think it's important to keep in mind that during the daytime, at least, the only real information you're going to get on how things are going are from the exit polls. I don't know if you're like me, but I was kind of traumatized by 2016 election. I don't really trust them. You can't really do anything about the news cycle as it's happening during the daytime.
This is why we really recommend thinking about why you feel you need up-to-the-minute information. I recognize I am known as the infophile. I am the lover of information. It's my whole gig. And I'm saying this this is something I have to think about too, is why do I feel I need up-to-the-minute information? And is scrolling social media truly the best way to get that? Sometimes needing this desperate need to be informed and know everything that's going on is so that you get some semblance of control over the situation, which we can vote, we can show up for each other, and constantly scrolling online does not actually really feed a sense of control truly. And I know that day I will be using the Forest app that I talked about, maybe even in our first episode, that helps keep me blocked from going onto social media for chunks of time. I get to set how much time I want to be blocked. So it might be like a couple hours not on social media, hop on there for 10 minutes, and then another couple hours not on social media. This is not a day for nuanced conversation on the internet. Rarely is it a day for nuanced conversation on the internet, but especially Election Day.
Most of us work that day. I know we both do. And you should really be realistic about your productivity expectations that day. Think about if you are the kind of person who maybe will do well with packing your schedule and having a ton of distractions and staying really busy to help keep you out of that anxiety spiral. Or do you know, you're just not going to be capable of being really productive that day? And if possible, can you zhuzh your schedule a bit to help account for that?
Yeah, I have a couple meetings scheduled for that day, but I can't imagine I'm going to have much brain for work. So I'm going to do my best to at least keep meetings on that day to a minimum and have a task list for myself of things I could work on that are kind of less kind of mentally taxing. And also, we fully recognize that being able to do this is a privilege. Right? People work different jobs. You might work retail. You might be a doctor. You might be a teacher, and you can't necessarily have as much control over your schedule as some people in some offices can. But I do think it's worth, wherever you can exert some of that control, if you can block off your calendar, if you need to, just really think about that.
If you are able, and if this is something that is mentally healthy for you, it would be a good idea to try to plan your meals for that day in advance. You're likely to be tired and hungry or mentally exhausted or taxed or cranky in some way, and that is not the best time to try to figure out what to eat for a meal. Also, have some snacks around you enjoy. Just prep in advance so you're not doing everyone's least favorite chore of planning dinner or another meal when you're already hungry and tired.
Yeah, I've already been thinking, I'm like, oh, maybe that's a day for like slow cooker chili, right?
Oh, that would be so good. I'm already looking forward to it.
Yeah, hey, if you can give yourself something to look forward to on that day, great. But yeah, slow cooker chili, and maybe, when we go shopping the weekend before, we'll find some for our favorite snacks.
Another thing that day that would be a really good idea is to maybe plan a watch list so you don't end up either just watching the news all evening or whatever, but also so you don't end up being on your streaming service and doing something that I am particularly good at, which is just flipping through all the things you could watch and going, wow, yeah, and trying to find the very most perfectest thing to watch and ending up not watching anything.
That is one of my least favorite things.
Oh, I don't enjoy it. I'm just really good at it.
I know. And I'm the exact opposite. I'm like, pick something, we're watching this. Sure. Yeah.
So we've already narrowed down our watch list. We've got 3 things that will be potentially on that day. We've got the new season of Heartstopper. We've got Agatha All Along, which did we even finish episode 1?
We got through some of it, and then it was our bedtime.
Yeah. Okay. And of course, the new and last season of What We Do in the Shadows should have started by then. So we can go hang out with our favorite vampires.
Oh, I love them. Also, plan other media. Like, what are you doing if you're not online? Are you going to read a book? Okay. What are you reading? Are you reading something new, or are you reading something that is a comfort read? If you have to get a copy from the library or something like that, maybe have it queued up already. I also recommend making yourself an election day playlist and think of a theme. Like, is this going to be a calming playlist? Is it songs to sing along to? I know that a really easy path to distraction for me is to listen to albums I haven't listened to in over a decade. Like, the nostalgia just takes over my body and stops me from spiraling. So I was thinking of working on a couple playlists for that day, but then I realized I still have all of my CD binders. So maybe we can flip through those on election day and see what's hanging out in the binders from the 90s.
Yeah, I mean, our new speakers have an aux cable, so if we can find the Discman,
oh my gosh.
and some batteries,
we'll listen to some CDs.
We can actually listen to CDs.
Amazing.
Another thing to do if you can is exercise, move, get in your body and out of your head through moving your body. Even if it's just like stretching or going for a walk around the block, getting outside is good if it's accessible to you, but
I also count, dancing is exercise. So that's another way to be in your body.
Are we going to have a dance battle?
I don't think we're going to have a battle.
We can have a dance off?
Why does it have to be a competition?
Well, it doesn't have to be a competition.
I also want to shout out Therapy for Black Girls. They will have a virtual community space, I think from noon to 4 Eastern time, and it is for a fee. You know, I'm not a therapist. We will not have the spell slots to hold space for anyone but each other on that day. But there are other groups out there that are holding virtual or maybe even in-person community spaces. So I recommend you research ahead of time to see what is available. So even that day, even if you don't go, you at least know there is somewhere you can show up, even if it's virtually. Also, talking about holding space, plan on reaching out to like-minded loved ones. You may not be able to do the emotional labor of being like, hey, how are you? But you can still reach out and be like, hey, thinking about you today. Hope you're managing, or whatever.
Let's talk a little bit more about that reaching out, both on election day and after, no matter which way it goes. You may be having big feelings that day, but it's also important to be mindful of where other people may be as well.
If this is not your first time listening to the show, then you know we are really big on communication skills. Most people aren't formally taught how to communicate, so we try to share tips whenever they are relevant. This communication advice we're going to give now centers around asking permission to share hard things, big feelings, or bad news.
And this, like I said, could be for election time or more in general. But I even asked permission of Patricia to talk to you about anything, first thing in the morning, right after you've woken up.
I am not a quick waker-upper.
And I'm usually up an hour, if not hours, before you. So I've had a whole morning frequently before you're up, and I'm very excited that you're finally up. But I try to respect that and say hey, can I talk to you now?
Yeah, and I also recognize, especially if we're both working from home, right when we get off work and we close the computers, we don't just dive into all the conversations. I would like to talk to you after a few minutes, or just asking hey, can I share something with you that happened at work today?
Yeah.
I recommend checking in before sharing the news. It could be, as I mentioned, hey, can I tell you some bad news? Or are you in a place where I can share some tough news with you? Or even just can I tell you something hard? This only works if the person on the receiving end has the ability to express a boundary by saying, no, I'm working right now. Is it urgent? Or they might say, hey, I'm out on an errand. Now isn't a good time. If it's not urgent, I'll get back to you when I can. Or they could just say yeah, go ahead. I'm open.
This is where it's on each of us at the very outset to really recognize that our friends, roommates, spouses, partners, children, coworkers, none of these people are our therapists.
And that's not to say that we don't share hard things with our loved ones, but really recognizing when you might want to share these things with a professional who knows how to hold space.
Yeah, and also just, again, this is where this whole asking for permission thing comes in.
Right. So Stephen Sondheim's work is deeply important to me. And when he died a few years ago, a friend just texted that info to me. Just hey, did you hear Stephen Sondheim died? I happened to be at the grocery store and I burst into tears at the butcher counter, which in retrospect, very appropriate. But a heads up would have been really kind in that moment.
Yeah, and this doesn't have to just be around big news. It can also be related to, this thing a lot of people are trying to do with staying very aware of current events and sharing just things that are happening that may particularly impact certain groups of people. I would really appreciate it if someone gave me a heads up before they just sent me a text message or something else, or just shared with me the latest post on, I don't know, Blue Sky or something of some horrible transphobic thing that's happening.
Right. Like sometimes I'm like, hey, a creator whose work we enjoy typically has said something really transphobic. Do you want me to share it with you right now? Just checking in.
Yeah. I think this was also something we really learned in the wake of like the George Floyd era.
Yeah. Because this also goes for sharing about another police shooting or more other racist behavior, police violence. And I know people are just going to share whatever they share on the internet. And it's important to think about why you're reposting this violence, right? And sometimes this is because with the genocide in Gaza, the Palestinian people are asking us to keep posting about this and don't let people sweep it under the rug. And at the same time, there are other things that happen, again, with George Floyd, with many of the other Black people who have been murdered by police, that sometimes people who aren't Black are sharing it, saying like, oh, look at this horrible thing. I'm not this. Look at me. I think this is horrible too. And what you're actually doing, like your Black friends or followers see this. And sometimes I just want to be on Instagram and look at cookie decorating videos.
You don't want to be on the receiving end of spreading awareness.
I'm aware. And that's what we were talking about when we were talking about this script too, is whatever big transphobic news is happening, I'm sure you already know.
I knew yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. So like, I don't need to forward it to you.
Yeah.
I might want to check in or something like that. But
yeah.
But again, it's the asking for permission before sharing these things.
The thing is, like, these kinds of things we're talking about, like, that are in the news, it is almost never urgent to surprise your friends with, especially your friends that are marginalized communities that may be overly impacted by that news.
Yeah. No surprise, hate crime. Like,
God.
Right. Like like things like natural disasters, like, yeah, timely, important, check in on people, let people know where they can get help. But a lot of these other things, I don't need up to the minute information.
No, there's a reason I got off Twitter.
Yeah, I hear that. Sometimes, though, the hard things you need to share are personal and they require some emotional labor from your loved ones. A way to respect people's energy and boundaries is to ask before bringing your woes to them. As I mentioned earlier, a simple like work or school or life is really rough right now. Can I tell you about it? Or something crappy but not urgent has happened. Do you have the spell slots for me to share it with you?
This does mean, though, people need to get comfortable both saying and hearing as a response, no, not right now, or I'm at work, maybe later, or I don't have the spell slots right now.
Being able to ask permission, hear a boundary, draw a boundary, can help keep a relationship on an even level. When these things aren't in place, it can breed resentment. Most people don't like when you trauma dump on them. One of my friends and I even give a heads up on our snail mail sometimes. We just write a little note on the outside of the envelope that says big feelings inside, so that if I happen to walk outside and grab the mail and it's obviously during the day and I'm between meetings, I could see if this is a letter that I want to open right then and there, or if it's one I want to wait until I have a little more time later.
Asking for permission around tough subjects is also a way for you to get your needs met, in that you're making sure that your loved ones can be fully present when you share the thing.
Yeah. Sharing a hard thing and someone's not paying attention. that could exacerbate.
And I think this is, to bring this back around, like, if the day after Election Day, you're not having a good day and you want to talk about it, ask for permission first.
Of who you're talking to, yeah.
Yeah. Don't just dump all your election feelings on the people around you or even your coworkers.
I mean, that's what Twitter is for. That's what Blue Sky is for. Write it in a journal. You could post it in your, post it in your Instagram stories.
Or, if you have like-minded friends, ask them.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm really bummed about this. Do you want to talk about it with me? But be ready to accept if they say, no, I'm not ready to talk about it yet. All right, Patricia, we kind of ran through a bit there. What is it you really want people to take away from this episode?
I would really want people to be inspired to have a bit of a plan for Election Day, especially if you are here in the US. I know I have friends abroad. I don't know how they are feeling about things affecting them in their day-to-day, but just kind of have a plan. Because even if at the last minute you're like, you know what, I'm turning off my phone, I'm not looking at the internet, still have an idea of what you're doing instead.
Ooh, what you're doing instead.
Nicole, what is your takeaway?
I really want people to walk away from this with the understanding that it's really important to ask permission before talking about or sharing the hard things with someone, and make sure you respect their boundaries if they say no, they don't want to talk about that with you. Do we have time for a resource?
We actually have time for a resource today.
Ooh, what do you got?
I don't know how much of a resource it is. It's just a neat thing I found on the internet. It's called, or actually the website is tree.fm, TREE.fm. And people all over the world can upload sounds of forests. And sometimes it's like a 3-minute clip. Sometimes it's an 8-minute clip. And it will tell you where it is. And it's just forest sounds that people have uploaded. So you can go, and it's like a random generator. So you go in, and I was listening to a forest in France somewhere for a few minutes, and then a forest in Germany. What I really enjoyed about it
was their accents.
I don't think the birds have accents.
Are you sure?
Okay, so no, I'm not sure because I was listening. I was like, oh, these birds, I've not heard these bird calls. So
these birds sound French.
These birds sound French. But it's Tree FM. It's a fun little thing that is also something I turn to when I just need a little something soothing.
I'm going to have to try that out.
There's also, I have a note here. So there was a website. I tried to check it out yesterday, but I don't know if I checked it out at a weird time. It's the Eternal Sunset website. It's at sunset.funwebsite.fun, and it kind of streams in public webcams from wherever the sun is setting.
Oh.
Except, of course, there are 2 kind of long strips of the world where it's just like, yeah, there's no cameras here, which is over a lot of the Pacific.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes you log in and it's just black. It's like, no, there's nothing. And then I think there's another part of the world where the countries aren't necessarily internet friendly. And so it'll just appear black at that time. But if you catch it at the right time, you could just hop around the world and follow the sunset. So I hope it works. I'm going to link it. I'm going to try to look at a different time because I really think I looked at a time when it was like, no, it's sunset over the Pacific somewhere, and not Hawaii. So I'll link it in the show notes.
Okay, Patricia.
Yes, Nicole.
What is filling your cup this week?
I have 2 things.
What?
One.
You have 2 cups?
I have 2 cups.
Or is your cup flowing?
I can't say it's flowing right now, but I do have a couple things that have filled it a bit. One is that one of my best friends from college came up from Southern California to visit us and brought one of her kiddos. And we went and had a picnic out at a regional park. And it was really great. Like, I haven't seen her since before the pandemic. And like, this is a kid we haven't met before.
Yeah.
So that was really wonderful. And also, it feels silly to say this, but I'm so excited. So one of my friends bought the rice cooker of my dreams. And then when it was on sale, and I happened to miss the sale, but then he bought another rice cooker, which was the one he wanted more. So he sold me the first one he bought, which was the one I wanted. He just sold it to me at the sale price instead of returning it. So now we have a Zojirushi Neuro Fuzzy rice cooker that I cannot wait to give a go.
I'm honestly really surprised that it's still in the box and it hasn't been like opened up and snuggled on the couch.
I've thought of it, but we've been too busy. Nicole, what's filling your cup right now?
So I really enjoyed the picnic we had with your friend from college, but we were at this regional park during sunset time. And as the sun was really going down, we wandered over to the kids' play area. So the kiddo they brought with them could slide on the slide, climb on the climbing structure, whatever. And it was positioned so that it was within, like surrounded on 3 sides by very tall trees. And the 4th side was open and faced the sky. And what this meant was that there were bats flying between the trees, and they were flying in a way where if we stood in amongst the play structures and looked toward the sky, they were really easy to see against the blue sky. And so there were just these wild little flappy bats flapping all over the place. And they were so cute and so fun to watch. And I know we were supposed to be paying attention to friends and little kid, but I was just watching the bats and I really enjoyed it.
I know you were, baby. It was great. So as you know, I love bats. My first tattoo is actually a bat, and I love how chaotically they fly.
They are not graceful flyers.
They are not graceful flyers, and I love, like, you watch a bat fly and you're like, how are you even still in the air? Just, I don't know. I love them. Well, that's our show for today. We'd like to thank our awesome audio editor, Jen Zink. You can find her at loopdiloo.com, and we'll leave a link to that in our show notes.
You can find the full show notes and transcript at eedapod.com. That's EEDAPOD.com. There, you can also find a link to our Patreon, our bookshop link, and a link to the ongoing Enthusiastic Encouragement and Dubious Advice newsletter. You can also find us on Instagram and Blue Sky at Eedapod, and email us at eedapod@gmail.com.
We are nothing if not consistent.
We would also appreciate it so much if you would subscribe and rate us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts that allow ratings. It actually does help a lot in helping other people find us.
We would also appreciate anyone who could subscribe to us on Patreon. Support there is going to help us keep this show going, especially without ads. You can find us at patreon.com/eedapod. In the meantime, we hope you find ways to be kind to yourself. Drink some water and read a book. We'll be talking to you soon.
I guess we should go make some rice?
Yeah. Rice.
Rice, rice, baby.
Dun 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 dun.